Beneath the ruins of an ancient Greek city on the coast of what is now western Turkey, in a corner of a room buried under a much later house, something had been sitting untouched for roughly 2,500 years. It wasn't jewelry, and it wasn't weapons. It was gold, sealed inside a small pot, hidden by someone who fully intended to come back for it. They never did. This is the story of the Notion gold hoard, and one of the rarest archaeological discoveries of its kind ever recorded. According to a press release from the University of Michigan, the discovery was made by a team of archaeologists working at the ancient city of Notion, an old Greek settlement on the Aegean coast of western Turkey. The excavation was led by Christopher Rade, a professor of classical studies at the University of Michigan and director of what's known as the Notion Archaeological Project. Rate's team had been conducting fieldwork at the site since 2022, carefully working through layer after layer of a city that had been fought over, occupied, and abandoned multiple times across the centuries. According to CBS News, the actual discovery took place back in 2023, but researchers only made it public more recently after receiving formal permission from the Turkish Ministry of Culture and Tourism to study and publish their findings. Notion itself has a complicated, layered history, exactly the kind of place where a discovery like this makes sense. According to Coin World, the city was folded into the Persian Empire alongside other Greek coastal cities in the middle of the 6th century BC. It broke free from Persian control in the early 5th century, only to be pulled back under Persian rule again in the early 4th century. For roughly 2 centuries, Notion existed on a kind of political fault line, caught between Greek independence and Persian imperial control, right in the middle of the broader power struggle between Athens and Persia. That instability is exactly the environment in which someone might feel the need to hide their wealth in the ground, rather than trust it to a bank, a household, or an uncertain political future. What the archaeologists actually found was almost deceptively simple. A small ceramic pot tucked into the corner of a room in a structure that had been buried beneath a later Hellenistic house. According to Christopher Rade, quoted in the University of Michigan's press release, the hoard was presumably stored there for safekeeping and for some reason was never recovered. Inside that pot were gold coins known as darics, a currency issued by the Persian Empire and instantly recognizable by their design. A kneeling archer, drawn with a bow, the signature image stamped onto Persian gold coinage for well over 2 centuries. According to Numismatic News, darics were minted from the late 6th century BC all the way until Alexander the Great's conquest of the Persian Empire in 330 BC, which means identifying exactly when a specific batch of darics was made requires close study of subtle stylistic differences in the design over time. Based on the archaeological layer the coins were found in, researchers dated this particular hoard to the 5th century BC. According to Christopher Rade, that specificity is what makes this discovery so exceptional. As he put it in the University of Michigan's press materials, in the case of this hoard, researchers know precisely where it was found, and they have a great deal of circumstantial evidence for roughly when it was buried. That kind of precision is almost never available with gold coin hoards, most of which surface accidentally through looting, construction, or amateur digging, completely stripped of the archaeological context that tells historians anything beyond what the coins themselves look like. This hoard is different. It was recovered through a controlled professional excavation, which means every detail about its position, its depth, and the layers surrounding it was documented before a single coin was lifted out of the ground. Historians researching the discovery point to one likely explanation for what this gold was actually for. According to a report from Sustainability Times, the ancient Greek historian Xenophon documented that a single daric was roughly equivalent to a month's pay for a soldier. Given the size of this hoard, researchers believe it could represent a payment cache large enough to fund a small contingent of professional mercenary fighters, hired muscle brought in during one of the many conflicts between Athens and Persia that swept through this region during the era. War in the ancient world didn't run on patriotism alone. It ran on gold, and soldiers who weren't paid on time didn't stay soldiers for long. A cache like this could easily have been a war chest, kept ready to fund troops loyal only for as long as the money kept flowing. And yet, for all that context, one central mystery remains completely unanswered. Why was this gold never retrieved? According to Christopher Rate, no one ever buries a hoard of coins, especially coins made of precious metal, without fully intending to come back for it. As he explained, only the gravest misfortune can account for the survival of a treasure like this. Something happened to whoever buried that pot in the corner of that room. Maybe they died in the very conflict this gold was meant to help fund. Maybe the city changed hands again before they could return. Maybe they were simply somewhere else when Notion's fortunes shifted, and they never found a way back. Whatever happened, the gold sat undisturbed for roughly 2,500 years, waiting for a group of modern archaeologists to accidentally finish the job the original owner never got the chance to. The significance of this find hasn't gone unnoticed by experts outside the excavation team itself. According to CBS News, Andrew Meadows of Oxford University, a former curator of coins at both the British Museum and the American Numismatic Society, described the discovery as a spectacular find, calling it, in his words, of the highest importance. Meadows noted that if the archaeological context can be firmly established through further study, this hoard could help researchers fine-tune the entire chronological timeline of Achaemenid Persian gold coinage, essentially using this single, precisely dated hoard as an anchor point to help date other darics found elsewhere without this kind of context. For now, the coins have been moved to the Ephesus Archaeological Museum in Turkey, where they remain under close study. According to CoinWorld, Rate has indicated that this discovery is really just the beginning of a much longer research project at the site, one that now includes the construction of a permanent storage facility built specifically to support continued excavation at Notion in the years ahead. Researchers are hoping that further digging at the site will help clarify exactly how and why this particular pot of gold ended up buried in that corner of that room and never moved again. What's left in the meantime is a silence that spans 2,500 years. Somewhere in the ancient world, a person, or perhaps a small group of soldiers, buried gold they believed they would return for in a city caught permanently between empires. They never came back, and what they left behind wasn't just a fortune in ancient currency. It was a frozen moment from one of the most turbulent chapters of the ancient Mediterranean world, waiting patiently under the ground until the day someone finally found it again.